So it's St John of the Cross's Day today. It'll have been moved to tomorrow because it's a Sunday. But, anyway, I'm commemorating it today. It used to be earlier. But they changed the calendar. Anyway, so I'm reading from his work now. Ascent of Mount Carmel, Book 2, Chapter 27. The second kind of revelation, the disclosure of secrets and hidden mysteries. The ways in which knowledge can be either a contribution or a hindrance toward union with God. How the devil can greatly deceive souls in this matter. 1. We stated that the second kind of revelation is the disclosure of secrets and hidden mysteries. It can be divided into two further categories. The first concerns God himself, which includes the revelation of the mystery of the Most Holy Trinity and unity of God. The second concerns God in his works. This comprises the remaining articles of our Catholic faith and the propositions of truths that can be explicitly formed about his works. These propositions embody a large number of revelatory prophecies, of promises and threats from God, and of other past and future events in regard to this matter of faith. We can include in this second category many other particular facts revealed ordinarily by God about the universe in general, and in particular about kingdoms, provinces, states, families, and individuals. We have numerous examples of these manifestations, both general and particular, in the divine scriptures, especially in the writings of the prophets, in which all these kinds of revelations are found. Since this assertion is clear and evident, I do not want to spend time here quoting scriptural passages. I merely want to affirm that these revelations are not given by word only, for God bestows them in a variety of ways and manners, sometimes by word alone, at other times only by signs, figures, images and likenesses, and sometimes by both together, as is seen in the writings of the prophets. This is particularly evident throughout the Apocalypse, where we find examples of all these various kinds of revelations, and also of different ways they are imparted. Before I go any further, the icon there is, the postcard of the icon, obviously. The icon is in St John of the Cross's second basilica in Segovia on the wall. So, as you go into it, there's the main church part of it, and then a little way down the church to the left, I don't know what you'd call it really, there's a branch going off the church, and in it is a tomb that contains some of the remains of St John of the Cross. As you walk back from that into the main church, the icon is on the wall, more or less in front of you. So, I went there. I'd been there several times to Segovia, although I generally prefer to go to Ubeda, which has his first basilica. There's a story about how he ended up in Segovia, but I won't tell it. Most of him ended up in Segovia, but I won't tell it now. But anyway, so I first went there, I think it was 2001. And then, I can't remember when the next time I went there was, but I definitely went there in May 2004, because I was walking away from the tomb of St John of the Cross towards the icon. The icon has like glass over it or something like that, so you can see a reflection in it. So I was walking towards the icon out of the branch of the church where the tomb of St John of the Cross is, and I could see myself reflected in the glass, but I wasn't exactly reflected as I was, because I saw myself in Muslim clothing walking through Morocco. I'd never been to Morocco at the time, But that's one of the reasons I started travelling extensively in Morocco. And there's other experiences similar to that I've had, mainly in Ubida, that I can see are linked together. Um, in relation to the experiences I had in the Church of England, like all the abuse basically, and vocational problems, I'll just put it that way, and linked together with the New World Order. And they just seemed like very random things to me at the time because I had no idea about how they came together. And it wasn't until I started researching Rowan Williams and realised this massive conspiracy going on behind the scenes that involved the whole world, that a lot of these experiences that I'd had, like the one, I mean, of seeing myself reflected in the glass of the icon, made sense. They became congruent, whereas previously they just seemed like random experiences that weren't intrinsically connected to each other in terms of what their meaning was, I mean. Because as soon as I first went to Morocco in September of 2005. Later in 2004, I went to Tarifa, which is the southernmost point of Europe on the south coast of Spain, quite near to Gibraltar. And I looked at Morocco over the sea, but I didn't go there. I moved house, you see. I bought a house in 2004, so I didn't have enough money to go travelling really that very much that year. So I think it was the year before that. ...2002 actually, I think it was, that I went travelling in Spain, and I went to Jerez, and I was staying in a youth hostel, and I was sharing a room with another woman, and we'd both go out for the day separately, I mean, and then come back in the evening and talk about where we'd been. And one day she'd been to Tarifa, and she showed me the postcards of it, that you could see Morocco across the sea. And I really, really wanted to go there so I could look at Morocco across the sea. But I didn't go the year after that. I might not be getting the years of this right, but it was some time anyway, in the early 2000s, obviously before 2005, because that was the first time I went to Morocco. But as soon as I arrived in Morocco, I realised that the way the Islamic world is presented in the West is completely false. I knew it instantly. And the more I travelled in Morocco, the more I became convinced of this. And I went everywhere. Like to very populated areas, to tourist areas, to more remote areas. I went camel trekking in the Sahara Desert, quite close to the border with Algeria. Travelling on my own all the time. I never had any trouble whatsoever. Nobody caused me any trouble. I've had more trouble travelling on my own in Europe than I did in Morocco. People were very kind and respectful to me. So, yeah, so that's and also there's a commentary on this icon. It was only available in Spanish, but one of the friars in Ubida asked if I'd translate it into English, because there was a group of a secular Carmelite group in America who wanted the commentary on this icon, and it wasn't available in English. And two people had previously tried to translate it. one using an online translator, which wasn't great. About 2008, this would have been. It wasn't great. And also, a Discalced Carmelite nun in Spain had tried to translate it as well, but it was too difficult for them. So there were 2 bits of translation that had been started already, but only like the first part of it. And it's quite a long, like the size of a magazine, because there's the commentary on the main icon, the history of it and how it came to be painted and stuff like that. And then there's a commentary on all the little icons that are around the edge. There's probably a name for those, but I don't know what it is. So anyway, yeah, there's a commentary on every one of those little pictures. And I translated it all, like, in about maybe 4 days or something like that, when I was staying in Ubeda. And I only had a small dictionary with me. So there were some words that I didn't know. But what happened was I translated it and it was all handwritten. And I gave it to the friar who'd asked me to translate it. And then he typed it all and emailed it to me so I could check everything. And then by that time I was at home, so I had a very big dictionary then that I could look up more obscure words that I didn't know. So anyway, he sent it to them in America, and then later on, he told me, oh, they said it was very good. And he gave me an olive from a tree that had been planted by St. John of the Cross in another monastery it was where I've never been. He said he was going to take me there one day, but then my life got ruined, you know, so I never got to go there. I'll be back in a minute. Yeah, this is the olive that he gave me from a tree planted by St. John of the Cross that he gave me for translating the commentary on that icon. And here is the petal of a lily. I've got another one. So those are from the Basilica in Segovia. Because this is, and I got those the time that I'm talking about. I went there and saw myself reflected in the icon, because I was walking around and then I went back. There were vases of lilies, white lilies, because they feature in his poem Dark Night. So anywhere associated with St. John of the Cross, you go there, they've often got white lilies as decorations. So I'd been walking around and the white lilies were there in the vases. And then I walked back to where his tomb is. And 2 of the petals had fallen off the lilies and it felt like a gift. So I picked them up and I pressed them in my guidebook of Spain. There's a cypress tree planted by St. John of the Cross that you can see very easily in Granada, because it's in a public garden, because there was a monastery there, Carmen de los Martires, and St. John of the Cross was prior there, and also while he was vicar provincial of Andalusia, and he probably wrote the poem Dark Night when he was there. And it's right up on the hill, right next to the Alhambra. So going travelling in Spain and looking at places where he lived was very helpful to me when I was researching him, because I found out that there's a lot of things written in books, in English books about St John of the Cross, that are missing easily obtainable information if you read Spanish or visit Spain. And one of those things that I read in a book, I can't remember what it is, that St John of the Cross was the prior of this monastery in Granada. And then some information about Granada, and that's where the Alhambra is. And it is not known whether he ever visited the Alhambra or not. And if you go there, you see that not only is the monastery up on the hill right next to the Alhambra, but there's also an aqueduct there built by St John of the Cross to bring water from the Alhambra for the friars to use in the monastery, for the use of the monastery. The aqueduct is still there, and the cypress tree that he planted as well. So now it's a public garden, Carmen de los Martires. It's still got the same name, but it's a public garden belonging to the city of Granada, and you can visit it during daylight hours. I think there was something else I was going to say, but I've forgotten what it is. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about the statue yet, have I? So the statue I bought in Toledo, I think it was January the 2nd or January the 3rd, 2005, because I went to the Tese European meeting in Lisbon. And then I didn't fly home directly from Lisbon. I went to Spain, because obviously that's what I'd do if I was so near Spain. And that's not a joke, honestly. Whenever I said I was going on holiday at work, people would say, "Oh, and which part of Spain are you going to this time?" And they were really surprised if I said I was going anywhere else. But I was researching St John of the Cross, you see, so it's very important to me to go to Spain. And also so that I could practice Spanish as well. So I used to spend about a month each year in Spain, because I had very good holiday entitlement, you see, because I'd worked for my employer for such a long time. And so I kept accruing more and more annual leave days. So I could still spend a month in Spain and then still have other holidays too. I've probably had about 6 or 7 weeks of annual leave in total. By the time they kicked me out. But I've been there 10 years. I was at the maximum amount of annual leave that I could possibly have. So about a month each year I spent in Spain. And a significant part of that was also staying on retreat in the Discalced Carmelite Monastery in Ubeda, where no one spoke English at all. So I had to be speaking Spanish all the time. And so it was very nice from a spiritual point of view and an academic point of view for me to stay there. But also from the point of view of communicating in Spanish, it was really good, because there was no English spoken there at all. There was one friar who wasn't Spanish, he was from Argentina, who could speak a few words of English, but he wasn't there most of the time when I was visiting anywhere. And also, we never spoke English on very, very rare occasions. Like, he would say hello to me in the morning in English, and the occasional phrase every now and then, but usually he wasn't very confident. Whenever he said anything in English, it was always right. Correct English, I mean. But he wasn't very confident. Anyway, I had to get confident because there was nothing else I could do, because no one spoke English. So if I wanted to say anything, it had to be in Spanish. And also, people in Ubeda don't speak perfect Spanish either. Like, they miss out half the word. So being able to understand them made it very easy for me to understand people with all other kinds of accents. Yes, so I bought that in Toledo, the statue. I was so excited when I saw it, because he's not a very popular saint, St John of the Cross. You know, for devotions and that, unless you're in some place that's associated with him, So finding statues of him is really difficult. And when I saw that, I was just walking past a shop randomly that was selling statues of saints. And I looked at it and I thought, that's St. John of the Cross. He's holding the cross and a book, and he's wearing a Carmelite habit, and it looks like him. It has to be him. But even then, I still went in the shop and asked the man, who is that saint in the window? And he told me it's St. John of the Cross. And I thought, that's it. This is my only chance to get a statue. So that's what I did. I love it. I love it as well. It's not a mass-produced piece. It's got a number on it. This word artisanía, it's not, I didn't even remember that it said that on there when I chose the brand name for my soap. I chose that because of the appearance of the word in the poem Los Nadies by Eduardo Galeano. Right. Yes, so I went to Toledo, then I visited a lot of other places around Madrid, like Avila, Segovia, and then I caught the night train to Barcelona and caught a flight back from there. 2. Even in our time, God grants revelations of this second category to whom he wills. He will reveal to some the number of days they have to live, or the trials they will have to endure, or something that will befall a particular person or kingdom, and so on. Even with regard to the mysteries of our faith, he will uncover and declare to the Spirit truths concerning them, although properly speaking this would not be a revelation, since they are already revealed. It would be instead a manifestation or declaration of the already revealed mysteries. 3. The devil can be a great meddler with this kind of revelation. Since the truths are imparted through words, figures, likenesses, and so on, he can make counterfeits more easily than when the revelations are given solely to the Spirit. If, in these 2 categories, we mention some new truth about our faith is revealed, or something at variance with it, we must by no means give assent, even though we may have evidence that it was spoken by an angel from heaven. Thus St. Paul states, if we or an angel from heaven declare or preach something other than what we have preached, let him be an anathema. Anathema, I can't remember it. I know the word and I can't remember it. Galatians 1:8. Anathema, that's it. I knew it. 4. Since there are no more articles to be revealed to the Church about the substance of our faith, people must not merely reject new revelations about the faith, but out of caution repudiate other kinds of knowledge mingled with them. In order to preserve the appropriate purity of faith, a person should not believe already revealed truths because they are again revealed, but because they were already sufficiently revealed to the Church. Closing one's mind to them, one should rest simply on the doctrine of the Church and its faith that, as St. Paul says, enters through hearing, Romans 10:17, and if individuals want to escape delusion, they should not adapt their credence and understanding to those truths of faith revealed again, no matter how true, and conform to the faith they may seem. To deceive and introduce lies, the devil first lures a person with truths and verisimilitudes. That's not the right pronunciation, but I don't know how to say it. That give assurance. Then he proceeds with his beguilement. These truths of his are like the bristle used in sewing leather. It is put through the holes first in order to pull the soft thread along after it. Without the bristle, the thread would never pass through. 5. Let this be kept in mind. Even if there is actually no danger of deception to the soul, it greatly behooves souls want to understand the truths of faith clearly, so that they may thereby conserve pure and entire the merit of faith, and also pass through this night of intellect to the divine light of union. Closing the eyes to any new revelation and focusing them on former prophecies is so important that even though St. Peter in some way saw the glory of the Son of God on Mount Tabor, he declared in his second epistle, Et habemus fermiorem propheticum sermonem qui benefactis attendentes, etc. Although our vision of Christ on the Mount was true, the word of the prophecy revealed to us is more certain and unshaken, and you do well by resting your soul on it. 2 Peter 1:19. 6. If it is true, for the reasons already mentioned, that one should close one's eyes to these revelations about the propositions of faith, how much greater need is there to repel and disbelieve other revelations about different things, and in which the devil usually meddles? Because of the apparent truth and convincing quality with which the devil clothes them, I consider it impossible for a person who is not striving to reject them to go undeceived. For to make people believe, the devil joins together so many apparent and appropriate facts, and implants them so firmly in the imagination and senses, that it seems the events will undoubtedly occur. And he causes the soul to be so convinced and tenacious about them, that if it has no humility, it will hardly be torn from its opinion, and made to believe the contrary. The pure, cautious, simple, and humble soul should resist and reject revelations and other visions with as much effort and care as it would extremely dangerous temptations. For in order to reach the union of love, there is need not to desire them, but to reject them. Solomon meant this when he exclaimed, "What need has one to desire and seek what is above one's natural capacity?" Ecclesiastes 6:11. There's a footnote here. From this point on, biblical quotations, with some exceptions, are given only in the vernacular. This becomes an important factor in historical critical studies. This means that to be perfect, there is no need to desire to receive goods in a way that is supernatural and beyond one's capacity. 7. Any objection that could be made against these instructions has already been answered in chapters 19 and 20 of this book. Footnote 3. Actually, these chapters are 21 and 22. The difference stems from the fact that various manuscripts divide their chapters differently. Referring to the doctrine given there, I say only that individuals should be on their guard against these revelations, so that through the night of faith they may journey to union purely and without error. Chapter 28. The nature and kinds of supernatural locutions received by the Spirit. 1. The discreet reader must always keep in mind my intention and goal in this book, to guide the soul in purity of faith, through all its natural and supernatural apprehensions, in freedom from deception and every obstacle, to divine union with God. One should understand that though I am not giving abundant instruction about these apprehensions of the soul, nor examining the divisions and subject matter as minutely as may be necessary, I am not being brief on this topic either, for I think I have imparted sufficient advice, light, and instruction on the prudent behaviour required for advancement in the midst of these exterior and interior apprehensions. This is why I discussed prophetic apprehensions so briefly, as I also did the others. There is so much to expound about each of these kinds of prophecy, about their difference and their ways and modes of being received, that I think one would never know it all fully. I am content that, in my opinion, the substantial part of the doctrine has been pointed out, as well as the caution that is necessary in dealing with these apprehensions, or anything resembling them. 2. I will now follow the same method with the third kind of apprehension, which we said were the supernatural locutions. These are usually produced in a person's spirit without the use of bodily senses as means. Although there are many classes, I find they can be reduced to three: successive, formal, and substantial locutions. Successive locutions are the words and reasonings that the spirit of itself usually forms and deduces while recollected. Formal locutions are certain distinct and formal words that the spirit receives, whether or not recollected, not from itself but from another. Substantial locutions are other words that are also produced formally in the spirit, regardless of whether one is recollected, and that cause in the substance of the soul, the power and very substance they signify. We will discuss all these in due order. Chapter 29 is very long, so I'm going to leave it there because I was talking a bit as well. I think that's the only statue of St. John of the Cross I've ever seen for sale. That one. You wouldn't find one in Britain, that's for sure. He was in prison in Toledo. They invented a lot of crap, the psychiatrists, to explain why I went to stay in the monastery in Ubeda. I'm not allowed to be an expert, you say. I'm only allowed to be obsessed. People like Rowan Williams, who have social approval for talking on such matters, they're allowed to be experts. But riffraff like me, I'm not allowed to be an expert, even though I'm an expert and he isn't. He just pretends that he is. It was very nice to stay there. From the point of view of I mean, from many points of view, but one of those points of view is that there's very few people on the earth who have an interest even, let alone any real knowledge about St. John of the Cross. But in Ubeda, he's their saint. So you can talk about him. You don't even have to say his name. You just say the saint, El Santo, and everybody knows who you're talking about. So, yeah. They've got another icon in Ubeda as well, showing a death scene, because that's where he died. With Carmelite friars and nuns around, standing around the bed, and olive trees. A lot of olive trees in the scene because it's an olive growing region. And there's a commentary on that as well. I translated that as well. I also translated another document into English entitled Spiritual Growth, that was a lecture by one of the friars. Not from there, I think, someone who was visiting. It was helpful to me, you see, to do these translations because I was trying to learn Spanish as much as possible. And so that was helpful to me. And also the subject matter interests me as well. So it wasn't a trial. translating them. There's a prayer that's said at Vespers. One of several prayers that's said at Vespers every evening. I mean, they choose one of them, they don't say them all. And I might write it down because I don't trust myself to say it out loud. And I can't remember it exactly, but I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to try writing it down first. Right, it's taken me that long to find a pencil and something to write on. So, okay, so I've written it down as best as I remember it. There's certain words I can't remember whether they're one thing or another. In particular, there's a word in the last line I can't remember whether it's ante or delante. So anyway, I'm just going to read it. San Juan de la Cruz, luz de la Santa Iglesia, hombre divino y celestial, canta de la hermosura de Dios y de la bondad de las criaturas, intercede por nosotros ante del Señor. It's something like that anyway. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.